the body in good health is duty, otherwise, we shall not be able to keep our mind strong and clear. Welcome to HS Guide, your go to learning companion for the 5 core subjects of Allied Health Sciences as per Rajiv Gandhi University. Our aim is to simplify complex medical topics with clear explanations, practical examples, and exam focused notes so you can study smarter, retain better, and apply with confidence. Now, in today's session, we will explore an essential part of cardiovascular system, the major arteries that are supplying blood to head, neck, and the upper limbs. We'll focus on the 3 important arteries in today's video, that is the common carotid artery, the subclavian artery, and the axillary artery. The common carotid artery is the main vessel supplying blood to the head and the brain. Subclavian artery, which branches off to supply the shoulder and the chest wall. The axillary artery, a continuation of the subclavian that nourishes the arm. Now, understanding these arteries is vital not only for the exam but also for the clinical practice, emergency procedures, and interpreting the vascular diseases in them. The learning objective is that by the end of this video, you'll be able to identify the course, branches, and the anatomical relations of common carotid, subclavian, and the axillary arteries as well. Understand the clinical importance of these arteries in the surgical approach, plus the examination of pulse and trauma care as well. Apply this knowledge to real life scenarios like the blood supply compromise and the diagnostic imaging that is performed by the radiology department. Now, takeaways from this video is that you have a clear diagrams and a structured explanation of each artery, the clinical relevance along with the anatomy for better understanding, and there are exam focused points to recall that are easier compared to the paragraphed notes. Notes for this topic are linked in the description below. Download them and reinforce your knowledge about the anatomy of the various major arteries and prepare effectively for your exams. This is going to be deep dive into the arteries pathway that keep your upper body alive and functioning. So grab your notebook and let's get started. So the overview of the common carotid artery, it has paired arteries which supply head and neck. So paired meaning on both the sides of the head and neck, these arteries run along and give the oxygenated blood supply to the brain and the neck region. They ascend on either side of the neck and divide into internal carotid artery and the external carotid artery. So you can see here there is a common carotid artery. So this common carotid artery arises from the aorta. So in the previous video we have already seen about the arches of aorta. So you can see here there is a right subclavian artery, right common carotid artery, left common carotid artery, and the subclavian artery. So these arteries arise from the common carotid arteries from right side and left side from the aorta. So it branches from the aortic arch and moves to the head region. In the image, you can see there is an internal carotid artery which runs medially through to the head region from the neck, and external carotid artery which is lateral to the internal carotid artery. So there is a bifurcation of the common carotid artery into internal and external. So this internal carotid artery is going to supply blood to the brain, and external carotid artery is going to supply blood to the face, scalp, and the neck structures. Now, the origin of right common carotid artery, it arises from the brachiocephalic trunk behind the right sternoclavicular joint. So this right common carotid artery is arising from the brachiocephalic artery. So from the aorta, the branches of aorta which involve the arch of aorta. So at the arch region there are 3 major branches from the arch of aorta, which is brachiocephalic, common carotid, left common carotid artery, and left subclavian artery. But the right common carotid artery arises from the brachiocephalic vein. So you can see in the image the brachiocephalic vein artery is getting divided into 2 different arteries. One is right subclavian artery and the other one is right common carotid artery. So you can see that the right common carotid artery is on the right side above the sternoclavicular joint. So the sternoclavicular joint is where the collarbone and the sternum is meeting. So that joint, at that region, you can feel the pulse, right? So when you feel that pulse, you can understand that the right common carotid artery is placed at that region. Now coming to the left common carotid artery, as the name says, it arises on the left side and directly from the aortic arch in the thorax. So this is not a branch as in case of right common carotid artery, it's coming from brachiocephalic, but the left common carotid artery is directly a branch of a arch of aorta, and it is at the the aortic arch from the thoracic region. It is arising from the thoracic region. Now the course of where all is this common carotid artery running through, or how is it branched and moving to the head region? So both the common carotid arteries, that is left and right, are within the carotid sheath. So there is a protective layer for the carotid arteries, which is a carotid sheath, which gives a protection to the blood artery, and here it is running along with the inferior jugular vein. So this is a jugular vein that is present along both the sides. They are at the same region as common carotid artery. So they run along each other. You can see a nerve as well, which is a vagus nerve, which is a major nerve that is producing nerve impulses for the heart, from the heart and the head and neck region. So you can see that these two structures are going to run parallel along with the common carotid artery, which is in the inferior jugular vein and the vagus nerve. So this region is very sensitive, and the blood supply is very thick at this region because there are two major structures, major blood vessels that are running at the neck region on both the sides. They travel up the neck and lateral to the trachea and esophagus. So they are going to arise from the thoracic region, the upper thoracic region, and move to the neck, followed by trachea and the esophagus also. So at the level of C3 and C4, C3 and C4 is the cervical vertebrae 3 and cervical vertebrae 4. At this region, there is a bifurcation of external and the internal carotid artery for both the right and left arteries. So in the right common carotid artery, you see two bifurcations at the region of the thyroid cartilage, upper border of that thyroid cartilage. There is two bifurcations. So here you can see there are two bifurcations that is happening at the thyroid, upper thyroid border. So this division gives the external and the internal common carotid artery. So the major structures and the courses that are running along with common carotid artery are given in this diagram. So you can see there is an inferior jugular vein that is running on both the sides. The blue color veins that you see, the thick veins that you see, those are the inferior jugular veins that is running on the both sides. You can also see the vagus nerve, the thick yellow color nerves that the vein structures that you see are the vagus nerves or the nervous system. Then you can see the bifurcation at the region of the upper border of the thyroid gland. You can see the trachea and esophagus as well. So on both the sides of the trachea and esophagus are the two common carotid arteries that are running on left and right side. Now the relation, now how are these blood vessels supplying oxygenated blood to the neck region? So in the neck region, anteriorly it is providing the skin, the superficial fascia, and platysma and sternocleidomastoid muscles, as well as ansa cervicalis. So ansa cervicalis is the structure that covers the cervical vertebrae. Now anteriorly all these structures are covered by the common carotid arteries. Now posteriorly you can see behind the common carotid artery, you can see it is providing blood supply to the prevertebral muscles and the cervical vertebra as well. Medially to the common carotid artery, it is providing blood supply to the trachea, esophagus, thyroid gland, especially on the left side. The laterally, it is providing, it is related to the internal jugular vein and the vagus nerve. So they are close to the internal jugular vein and the vagus nerve as well. Now the branches of this common carotid artery. So we have already seen that it majorly bifurcates into two different carotid arteries, which is internal and external. These internal carotid arteries have no branches in the neck, but they directly enter into the skull as a carotid canal and supply blood to the brain as well as eyes. Whereas external carotid artery has various branches like the facial artery, lingual artery, maxillary artery. So as the name says, facial to the face, lingual for the tongue, maxillary for the maxilla. So it branches out and produces the blood supply to the facial region, neck region as such. Now, the clinical relevance, what you have to study along with the common carotid artery is that you can find out the carotid pulse, carotid artery. So you are going to understand the condition or the symptoms or the tests that can be applied while diagnosing or treating certain or management of the patient health. It explains why something is important in real life medical practice. So whatever you learn in theoretical practice, when you're applying it in practical version of the medical practice, these are going to be helpful. So anatomy is going to have a clinical relevance to diagnose, treat and manage the patient's health. Now the carotid pulse is one such test that is done to palpate the heart rate of the patient or to check the heart rate of the patient. Now the carotid pulse is felt near the anterior triangle of the neck. So you are going to palpate it at the anterior triangle of neck. So anteriorly at the region of the sternoclavicular region, there is a triangle that is forming near your collarbone. So you can feel the carotid pulse over there. So based upon the carotid pulse, you can check the patient's heart rate. So it is one such clinical practice that can be adopted. Now, carotid sinus hypersensitivity is a condition where it causes fainting. So due to the stimulation of the carotid sinus baroreceptors, the patients or the elderly individuals face certain drop in heart rate or blood pressure drop, and it might lead to dizziness. So syncope is nothing but dizziness or fainting that is observed in the elderly patient. It is because of the carotid sinus hypersensitivity. Now the atherosclerosis is where fat molecules or lipid molecules go and accumulate in the blood vascular system. So when they accumulate in the blood vascular system, they cause the blockage or obstruction to the blood movement of the blood. And when the atherosclerosis forms at the region of common carotid artery, it can lead to stroke because the blood supply of a common carotid artery is towards the brain, and anything that is blocking blood supply, oxygenated blood supply to the brain, can lead to stroke, that is death of the brain cells. Now carotid endarterectomy is a surgical removal of plaque from the artery. So in case of formation of any obstruction in the artery due to the accumulation of any cells or due to accumulation of any other particles in the artery, this is removed by a surgical procedure called carotid endarterectomy. Now, ultrasound or a Doppler effect that is used to assess the blood flow or detect the stenosis in the blood. Stenosis is the blockage in the blood artery. So, ultrasound can be used to determine the blood flow in the carotid artery. So, surface anatomy. So, how are you going to palpate a carotid artery? This is how it is shown. The artery lies deep into the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So you can feel it medially at the sternocleidomastoid muscle at the level of the carotid artery. So you can see the image. There is the lines that are showing the different arteries, veins, and the anatomy, surface anatomy. You can see the clavicle, the collarbone, the sternal head. So at this region, there is a circle, red circle that you see, that is the region where you can feel the carotid pulse. Now moving to the second major artery that we are going to be studying today, which is subclavian artery. The overview of subclavian artery, they are paired large arteries that supply the upper limbs, neck, brain and thoracic wall. So they are paired, meaning both left and right side you can see the subclavian arteries. So these subclavian arteries provide oxygenated blood supply to the upper limbs, to certain parts of neck, brain and the thoracic wall or the chest wall. Each subclavian artery arches laterally and becomes the axillary artery to the lateral border of the first rib. So these subclavian arteries are going to arch, meaning they are going to bend towards the upper limbs, form an axillary artery at the lateral border of the first rib. Now the origin of from where is the subclavian artery arising? So the right subclavian artery is a branch of the brachiocephalic vein. You can see here the first from the arch of aorta. You can see the first branch of arch of aorta, which is brachiocephalic artery. The brachiocephalic artery is dividing into right subclavian artery and the right common carotid artery. So this is the right subclavian artery. Now this arises from the brachiocephalic trunk behind the right sternoclavicular joint. Now the left subclavian artery, this is arising directly from the arch of aorta, that is the third branch of arch of aorta. So it is not like dividing, if as in case of right subclavian artery there is a brachiocephalic artery, but in the left subclavian artery this is directly arising from the arch of aorta. Now the course of subclavian arteries, it starts arches at laterally and posteriorly to the anterior scalene muscles. So in the anterior region you can observe that it is arching towards the lateral side, not medially, lateral side, that is towards the upper limbs, and posterior to the anterior scalene muscles. So you can see the scalene muscles below which is this artery running. Now this subclavian artery can be divided into three parts based on the relation to the scalene anterior muscles. So the first part is from origin to the medial border of scalenus anterior. Then second part is the posterior to the scalenus artery anterior, and then the third part is the lateral border of scalenus anterior to the lateral border of the first rib. So here you can see there are three parts. The first thing, at the lateral margin of the first rib you can see the lateral border of the subclavian artery. So subclavian artery is moving on the subclavius. At the junction of rib 1 there is axillary artery. This axillary artery is getting divided into three parts because of the scalene muscles, anterior scalene muscles. So there is one muscle that is running above the subclavian artery or the axillary artery. So this axillary artery can be divided into three parts: the first part, second part and third part. The first part is the anterior region, so it is called as the medial border of scalenus anterior. Then you have the posterior to the scalenus anterior, the second one, which is behind the scalene muscle. Then the third part, which is the lateral borders of scalenus anterior to the lateral border of the first rib. So that covers the three parts of the axillary artery. Later, the branches of subclavian artery. So there's a mnemonic that is given. If you can't remember the names of each one of them, you can have the short form of this with C and D. So each part gives off different specific branches. So the first part, that is the first part of the axillary artery or the subclavian artery, is the vertebral artery, internal thoracic artery and the thyrocervical trunk. This vertebral artery supplies brain via foramen magnum. So foramen magnum is an opening in the vertebral column, or the opening that allows the arteries to the brain as well as the vertebral column or the spinal cord that runs along the spine. The spinal nerves that run in the vertebral column is seen in the foramen magnum. At the same foramen magnum, it acts as a opening for the vertebral artery to invade the brain and give the oxygenated blood supply. I is for internal thoracic artery. Here, this internal thoracic artery acts as a blood supply to the anterior, that is the front region of the chest wall or the thoracic wall. Then we have T, which is thyrocervical trunk. Here the thyrocervical trunk is dividing into different arteries. Thyro as in thyroid, cervical as in the vertebral column, the cervical. Now, inferior thyroid artery supplies blood to the thyroid. Transverse cervical artery to the cervical vertebrae. Then suprascapular artery, which supplies blood to the shoulder region. Now, the second part of the axillary artery is the costal cervical trunk. This is deep cervical artery and gives supply to the supreme intercostal artery as well. So these are the two different branches of the axillary artery. Now the third part of axillary artery, which is dorsal scapular artery, this may arise from the transverse cervical or directly from the scapulary artery. Now the relations in comparison to the different structures that are present close to the subclavian artery is the subclavius muscle. In anterior region, subclavius muscle, you have clavicle, the sternocleidomastoid that overlaps over these arteries. Then you have internal jugular and the subclavian vein as well. So anteriorly in the front region of the subclavian artery, you can see all these structures. Moving to the posterior region of the same subclavian artery, you can see the apex of lungs that is touching it with pleura as well. You can see the first rib as well as the sympathetic trunk. Superiorly, that is above the subclavian artery, you can see the brachial plexus roots and the trunks. These are especially between the anterior and the middle scalene of the branch of the subclavian artery. Inferiorly, that is below the subclavian artery, you can see the cupola of lung and the first rib. So the transition is the subclavian artery is going to branch out or moves into the axilla, and hence it is called axillary artery at the lateral border of the first rib. It continues into the brachial artery. So it starts as a arch of Foyata, branches as brachiocephalic vein or the left subclavian artery. Then the subclavian artery is going to form axillary artery because it is reaching the region of axilla, and followed by the brachial artery, which is supplying blood to the brachial muscles or the teres major muscle. So beyond the teres major muscle, whatever artery is present, it is called brachial artery. The clinical relevance, the first point, which is subclavian steal syndrome. Here, the reversal of blood flow in the vertebral artery is seen due to the stenosis or the occlusion of the subclavian artery. So, as it says, subclavian steal syndrome, it is stealing the blood that has to be supplied to the subclavian region because there is a occlusion or the obstruction or the stenosis formation at the region of the vertebral artery. So, the blood flow which is supposed to go through the vertebral region is going to backflow and cause the diversion of the blood, not to the vertebra. So this syndrome or this condition is called subclavian steal syndrome. The second thing that we are going to see about subclavian vein or artery is that you can see a central line placement for the subclavian vein. So you can access subclavian vein by palpating on the subclavian artery. So there's going to be a close relation, that is the subclavian vein runs along with the close to the subclavian artery. So once you find out the artery, this subclavian vein is said to be posteriorly located. So there are certain chances that this subclavian artery can be punctured because this subclavian vein is accessed below it. So sometimes they use the palpation as a method to avoid the subclavian artery. So you cannot put a needle into a central line into a subclavian. So central line is used to give drugs to the patient, like the chemotherapy drugs or any other IV fluids or the intravenous fluids to the patient. So in this central line, you're supposed to place it or puncture the needle into the veins alone. So artery shouldn't be accessed because for the drug infusion or the fluid infusion. Chances of artery getting punctured is very high because of the presence of the subclavian artery below which the subclavian vein is seen. Now, thoracic outlet syndrome. Here, the compression of the subclavian artery by the scalene muscles or the cervical rib can cause the thoracic outlet syndrome. That is, the thoracic arteries that are being branching out from the subclavian artery are being compressed by the scalene muscles of the cervical ribs. Here is an image of how an axillary artery is, which we are going to see in the next slide. So this is the third major artery that we are going to study today. So here the subclavian artery is going further into the shoulder region or the axillary region. So here this part of the artery that is being traveling after the scalene muscle is called as the axillary artery. Now we'll see the overview of axillary artery. It is the continuation of the subclavian artery and begins at the lateral border of the first rib and continues as a brachial artery at the lower border of the teres major muscle. So it begins as the lateral border of the first rib, that is, it is close to the lateral border of the first rib that is there, and it is going to continue as a brachial artery till the from the teres major muscle. So lower to the teres major muscle is called as brachial artery, above which is the axillary artery. Now this supplies blood to the upper limbs, the shoulders, the axilla, and the lateral thoracic wall as well. So the parts of axillary artery can be divided into three major things by the in relation with the pectoralis minor muscle or the chest muscles. Here the first part is called proximal to pectoralis minor. So from proximal to the pectoralis minor, it is called the first part of axillary artery. The second part is the posterior to the pectoralis minor. Third part is distal to the pectoralis minor. Now here you can see the different parts of the axillary artery. So the branches can be called screw the lawyer, save a patient. So it is a mnemonic. You're not going to write this in your exam because it can cut marks for you. So this is a method to remember, but not the exact wordings that you're supposed to write in exam. So screw the lawyer, save the patient. So we are going to break down how this is going to work. So every first letter of this mnemonic, that is screw the lawyer, save a patient, STLSAP, are going to represent the different parts of the axillary artery. So the first part or the first branch is the superior thoracic artery. So this is going to provide blood supply to the first and the second intercostal spaces and the serratus anterior. So this is going to give the thoracic region, the superior or the front upper part of the thoracic cavity. So hence it is called superior thoracic artery. It is supplying blood to the first and the second intercostal spaces and the serratus anterior. Now the second part is, or the second branch is the TNL, which is thoracoacromial artery, and the second one, which is L, lateral thoracic artery. So thoracoacromial artery is going to provide blood supply to the pectoral